This is a clouds weather alert. Good Saturday afternoon, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud coming in the air right now with a flash flood warning in play for portions of the area at about 3:30 p.m. It's a part of Putnam County that we're looking at here on the Doppler. You see I have it clicked on there, watching that scenario. Let me read off the statement from the Weather Service in Jacksonville. At about 2:04, Doppler radar indicated thunderstorms producing heavy rainfall across the warned area, central Putnam County, including the community of Hollister. Under this until about 3:30. Between 3 and 4.5 inches of rain have fallen. Additional rainfall amounts of 1 to 2 inches are possible in the warned area. Flash flooding either ongoing or expected to begin shortly. Flash flooding of small creeks and streams, potentially, some streets there. Other poor drainage in low-lying areas, that's a possibility. I know it's a pretty rural area, so we're tracking this, though, nonetheless. So with this potential, you just want to remember to turn around, don't drown when encountering flooded roads, as most flood deaths do occur in vehicles. Again, a flash flood warning here in play at about 3:30. These are the type that go off on weather radios. I mean, it went off on my weather radio here just a moment ago for parts of Putnam. It's, a level above a flood advisory. So that's why we take these a little more seriously. A flood advisory is not going to go off on a weather radio, but a flash flood warning will here. It's a pretty small area, and honestly, a lot of the heaviest rain is already kind of stopped here with this, but we'll back it up 15 minutes. You can see how a lot of it's more off toward the east, but there's a little corridor in here with some concern as we get towards State Road 20. It's a Saturday afternoon. People are out and about here with the overall scenario in terms of, almost starting back school here. Maybe in some unfamiliar areas, kind of finishing off those last, last few days, give or take a summer, depending on what county you're in here toward our North Florida zones. And you might be in some spots you don't generally go in, and you may be getting caught in some flood potential here. So flash flood warning till 3:30 for parts of Putnam County. Let's go over to some of the different products we have at our disposal, like the flood risk product. Is just so a little bit of a flood risk here, an elevated one toward parts of Putnam, flash flooding risk, also toward parts of St. Johns County, a little bit of that, even in the toward Duval County. And I do honestly want to touch on this here a little bit, our accident toward Duval County. It is not severe warned, but it's been pretty noteworthy. A lot more lightning here up there, over the last little bit than there is now, but even more lightning there now in that spot compared to other spots in the viewing circle in general. I'll back it up 30 minutes. You can see that quite a bit more earlier on. I was posting about that around 1 o'clock over on my Facebook page, sharing that to my other weather Facebook page there. So Casey Cloud Everybody Accident, and sharing that to Clouds Weather. And then Twitter/X at Cloud Casey had a post, the same post there on that platform as well about our thunderstorm accident. It wasn't quite as severe limits, hadn't been to severe limits, but still impactful with a lot of lightning. Just whenever thunder roars, you want to go indoors. It's been pretty nasty coming across downtown. And let's see how much rain is kind of falling in that area here over the last little bit as we go to some of our different modes. I'll look last 3 hours there, and you'll be able to see. Granted, this is probably, less than 3 hours really with the overall time frame, but you see a few inches of rain right here in toward Jacksonville, right around areas there around Arlington. You can see there just some of these different spots there. Justino Road, Sesame Boulevard, as we watch the overall situation progress here. I know there's special weather statements in play with some flood advisories, alerts along those lines here this afternoon. Not enough to get to a flash flood warning, but let's look down here with our flash flood warning. This is what we're actually on, even though it's not overly impressive, to be completely honest with you. But again, you just never know here. Maybe some stuff that's already kind of been noted here just based on reports that don't have access to or something like that here over the last little bit. This is a significant amount of rainfall. It's just a pretty rural area overall. You can see about 4 inches of rain in toward some of these spots in Putnam County according to radar estimates. Again, it's a pretty rural zone though. I mean, you see Hollister, you see Hunter out there, those communities. I mean, Palatka to the east here. Only picking up about 5/100th of an inch. So you hear a flash flood warning for Putnam County, you think Palatka. But no, they really haven't had that much rain there in toward Palatka this afternoon. As we kind of look at things, I mean, this is the worst of the rain. I mean, less than 10 miles away. But I mean, that's a big differential there as we're kind of looking. Again, not much around Palatka, quite a bit here further west, but in Interlachen, about an inch or so as we get out there toward that part of the county. So Again, a flash flood warning is a small part of Putnam County there. So again, don't be alarmed if you're in Palatka. Granted, I'll see the current radar. There is some, moderate rainfall in your area. There's more lightning to your south, though, from about Willaca up through, it looks like the community of Possum Bluff there, Grandview Grove. Again, seeing some of that, and quite a bit of lightning here in St. Johns County, east of Hastings, around Armstrong, Elkton there. You see around Cedar Landing. So at the beaches, you don't want to be out and about right now. Whenever thunder roars, you need to go indoors. And you also, even when the weather clears up, you have the rip current threat as well. So you got to be mindful of that with this overall pattern we're in. We've had that tropical wave, not going to develop in anything named or anything like that. But it's a situation where it has had some of that moisture and just the overall wind flow pattern involved here. We're seeing some of that rip current threat. So again, we just have to be very mindful here of the overall scenario. Again, in northern parts of Duval County, and then you had some of that Axon northern periphery. There's a flood advisory for parts of Pierce County to 4:15. And you can just see here in the northern parts of Union County here, getting into Baker County, into parts of that area near Lusty, some lightning right now. Just again, whenever thunder roars, you want to go indoors on Tiger Lake Road. That's where some of the worst of that is right now. You see a lightning strike in the last 60 seconds here west of Rayford, north of Lake Butler, around Northeast 30th Street. So again, just got to be careful. I mean, granted, we had quite a bit more lightning on the board earlier. I posted this earlier. It was around 400 strikes about 1 o'clock here in the frame. And you can see that kind of even a little after that. We had more lightning. We just didn't have any warnings. Lightning is not a severe criteria. It can sometimes indicate severe weather. And it can still be very dangerous, but it's not technically directly proportional. It can be sometimes, but in terms of more lightning is not going to always equal severe thunderstorm warning. The severe thunderstorm criteria is for wind and hail, which we haven't really achieved here today so far, it doesn't seem like, in terms of those signals on the Doppler algorithms, through those Doppler algorithms. So again, something to kind of be mindful of. Let's go ahead and go to the outage information right now. You just see a handful of outages here, so nothing too crazy. That's good news, obviously, as we're looking at the overall scenario. Let me go ahead and see those temperatures. Here's a little cooler toward the east here. You can see 77 around Stark. We picked up a little over 1/10 of an inch here east of Stark on my rain gauge today. Warmer to the west here, and let's see how things are expected to transpire here according to the HRRR model over the next several hours. You do see some accent here, maybe. It tries to say stuff pretty late out west. We'll see. I mean, the models, they, have trouble in these type of patterns here this time of year, especially. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see. There's not a formal risk out from the Storm Prediction Center or anything as we're watching the overall scenario. So we'll just have to pay attention, obviously. I'll go ahead and go over to our convective outlook. You see a general thunderstorm risk. That's what that light green's for. That's the story until you get to far north Georgia there, and just a general thunderstorm risk in a wider range here. I mean, further northeast, there's a slight risk of severe up there and toward New York, but that vicinity, but toward the Big Apple. But as we go ahead and get down here toward our local area here, you can see what we're dealing with the overall view. I notice whenever thunder roars, you do need to go indoors here. Lightning can strike miles away from a parent storm, so very important to keep in mind as we're looking at that. Let me go ahead and go to the other computer real quick. If there's any questions, comments here from any of the viewers at home, because we have some folks watching here. I know Fissel, RY, and Nirvana talking about there was some crazy wind and rain in Jacksonville. Thomas watching, the lightning just crazy there according to Fissel, RY, Nirvana there. And then Top Cat thanking me for the information. Appreciate you. Appreciate all of you guys, everybody tuning in here. On this Saturday, on this 8th day of August, 2026. Just appreciate your viewership here. And this is probably a pretty quick update. That flash flood warning does not concern me, it's not of overwhelming concern, I should say. I mean, obviously any warning concerns me a little bit, but it's not something that I'm overly concerned about, is what I'm trying to say there, the message I'm trying to get across. I mean, there are other areas with this lightning that honestly make me a little more nervous in terms of the Saturday afternoon plans. Again, just got to be very mindful of things. You see the electricity here on the Doppler as we get toward, areas around Tiger Lake Road, CC Road there, North County Road 231. But you still, I mean, if you do go through this area, I mean, some of these small roads could have some issues on, not there. So I can't, say for sure. I mean, there was a good bit of rain in there. Don't get me wrong. It's just a lot of that's already kind of stopped here as we're looking. But we like to try to go on even for the flash flood warnings here. Again, this is one of your lower end type of flash flood warnings, to be completely honest. But so I'm talking about some of the other storm action as well. Just kind of, talking about the flash flood warning, giving you that information, but also while we're on this, we'll talk about some other issues here because most of you guys aren't in that flash flood warning, obviously, as we're looking at the overall situation. But here's another way to look at this. I mean, some spots getting over 4 inches. That's impressive. It's just a lot of that had already kind of stopped here over the last little bit as we get here toward areas around Hoover Road, Gloria Drive. You can kind of see here as we get on in here. I mean, that's a little bit more impressive there, when you look at it that way, down to street level. But again, the current view here is a pretty dry one there now. I mean, it has, been wet toward that zone there as we're looking. And some of those areas, there could be some issues with, 4 inches, that's going to let, really things get out of hand in a few spots, maybe with some of those ditches there. They could kind of overflow in a few spots for sure. I mean, let's see how quick that kind of happened because we'll go back 2 hours. So 2 hours ago, let's zoom into Hollister. This is kind of where we're watching here. So I'll kind of circle Hollister, that community, and we'll kind of go through this here. We'll kind of loop this through. You see around 1 o'clock is when it really started there. And then when that 1 o'clock hour is this heavy rain there for a while. Some flooded rosary type of conditions, but then you see the flash flood warning popping up here as we look toward that 2 o'clock hour. So again, seeing the overall situation there with that yellow circle. Some of that rain definitely, causing some issues, I'm sure, but it's a fairly, sparsely populated area. As we're looking out there, you see a flooded rosary pop in there, but then getting upgraded to a flash flood warning. There may be some information, I'm not aware of about road closures or something in that area there that might be causing that. So again, just continuing to give you guys the very latest here on the situation. This is south of Caraway. You can see here north of Rodman. So that's kind of the overall situation here as we're monitoring inward parts of Putnam County. Let me see if there's any updates on anything here. Just going to check some of my different sources. I'm just trying to update the best I can. Looking through here. Just seeing if we have any information here. Now, I do see the community of Rodman. I'm going to check something real quick here. I just don't, I'm not 100% sure about all the details here, but there is a dam in this area around Rodman. So I don't see anything about any type of information here that suggests this has anything to do with that. I'm just, wondering here if that, that because that Rodman Dam, that is something that we have in our area here. So it's just the community of Rodman just outside of the warning there, but we don't have anything in the Polygon information or details that talks about that. So just kind of, curious about this here in general. It just seems to be a base flash flood warning overall, and it's more focused up toward the communities like Hollister and Hunter there as we're looking at the overall information. So, okay, you see Rodman Dam Road right there as we kind of zoom in here. That's more toward the south as we look at the overall scenario there, at least. Again, I'm not 100%, sure on all the details about that area there in terms of the geography. I'm just, it's a kind of a, a lower end situation to have a flash flood warning in. So I'm trying to figure out reasons why this may have been issued here as we're looking toward that area, to be completely honest with you. But again, let's just go ahead and look off toward the east here as we look toward parts of St. Johns County, Vermont Heights there, Elkton. Seeing some lightning. Atlantic Beach, Neptune Beach there, Mayport area. Again, a lot of lightning. Let's go to the Tallahassee radar. You don't see near as much out that way right now, but your temperatures out there are on the warmer side and a lot more instability. I was looking, we have, it was around 4,000 joules per kilogram, something in that range as I was looking towards some areas further out west here a little bit earlier on. So there's a lot of energy here. Let's pull up satellite. We'll go ahead. You see all of our different tools, but here's your satellite. A lot more storm action to the east and associated with a tropical wave. I know the flow's been a little more, northerly, south to north or southeast to northwest today versus, east to west. As we're looking at the overall pattern here, but you see how it's a lot clearer out toward the west. So that's something we'll watch for maybe future storm development on the periphery here of this tropical wave and the energy from it. But again, not an overwhelming situation. Definitely not, something to turn the logo red for or anything like that here. This is not that, big of a deal overall, but still the lightning has been an issue here at times, and that's something you got to be careful about. Even if you don't have a warning, that's why it's important to have the Cloud Alert app, because you get a lightning alert if there's any lightning within 15 miles, depending on how everything's set in that. So that's something important to have. I know as we try to keep you guys updated here, across our 38 counties. Let me remind you guys, over our 38 counties, again, parts of Putnam County, but not Interlochen, not Palatka, but parts of Putnam County around Hollister under a flash flood warning until 3:30. But again, a lot of the heaviest rain has already stopped in that area there. So that's some good news. Seeing that more in toward that 1 o'clock hour, it would seem, as we're looking at the overall picture. But let me go ahead and show you guys a couple things real quick in terms of that back to school forecast. As you guys are, maybe getting ready here for school on Monday. This is that last weekend in a lot of our Florida zones, well, in all of our Florida zones the last weekend, but the last couple of days in a lot of the Florida zones here before public school starts back. Because if it's not starting back Monday, it's starting back Tuesday or Wednesday here as we're looking at the overall situation. Because all the schools in Florida start back between Monday and Wednesday. In Georgia, you already might have had that last weekend, and this is your first weekend off from classes here after a pretty busy part of a week or a week there. But in Florida, this is your last weekend before those classes start back, for local families here as we're looking at things. So this weather definitely having an impact as we're tracking the overall scenario. And I'll go ahead and remind you guys of that forecast for that Monday. Multiple counties, including Duval and Alachua, going back on Monday to the classroom, that first day of school. And Bradford, here where I'm at, it's actually Tuesday when we go back the 11th. But you see on the 10th there, as we wake up, about mid-70s there in the morning, again toward the 90s. And then that heat index, that's going to be a bigger story next week. The heat's going to be getting up there. Our rain chances are going to be even lower than 40% as we look ahead later on in toward the week there, as we give you guys the overall situation, analysis here, giving you the overall, analysis of the scenario. But again, just wanted to give you that as we look ahead toward that Monday here. A lot of you, families, our local families here are going back to the classroom. Your kids going back, as a teacher, you may be going back. You might have already had some of that pre-planning. So definitely exciting here, an exciting time for local families as we look at the overall scenario. Again, as we get into toward Monday here, we're going to be watching that overall forecast very carefully in terms of, even just a lower rain chance, even just, one thunderstorm can be really problematic at that, getting on to the bus time frame there, as you're getting onto the bus there, that overall time frame at school. I would say the bus stop, but really, just, students getting dropped back off as they're headed on home there. That's not, something where hopefully I have to be waiting long, in that type of scenario. But it's a scenario in the morning where we shouldn't have too much rain. But when, they're getting, onto the bus at school to leave for the day, that's when the storms could definitely be more prevalent as we're looking at the overall scenario. So again, watching that there in terms of the informational details. Let me go ahead and go back to the radar view right now, and you'll see our view. Did they go ahead and cancel the flash flood warning already? They might have, to be completely honest. It's supposed to go to 3:30, but I don't see it anymore on our board. Let's see if they've decided to cancel that. I think they gone ahead and got rid of that because I don't see it on any of my information anymore. So that'd be some good news. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Raul watching, just appreciate everybody tuning on in here. Okay, flash flood warning is canceled for Central Putnam County. The heavy rain has ended. Flood is no longer expected to pose a threat, but they're saying please continue to heed remaining road closures. So possibly there might have been some road closures in that area there as we've been looking over the last little bit. So the flash flood warning has been canceled, which is great news. I was going to turn this into a radar stream once we wrapped it up. I may not even do that here just for the fact that since, what I posted about it's already over, a flash flood warning, I don't want to confuse anybody there, but we'll talk a little bit longer about things, and then we might wrap it. We'll see how things go here in terms of the Doppler views over the next few minutes, what I'm seeing as I'm updating the very best I can. So do have some storm action on St. Augustine. I mean, if you're at the beach, you got to remember whenever thunder roars, go indoors. Special weather statement. So 3 p.m. as we're looking out that way, some gusty winds out that way and toward those zones. Seeing some of those reds there indicative of winds maybe 40 miles an hour. Granted, that's not going to show it like that, but again, a lot less lightning than we had earlier in general in the overall viewpoint. I mean, that's still quite a bit, but I mean, let's go back 3 hours even. I mean, you didn't have a lot then, but you'll see how it just exploded. We get toward that lunch hour there, and things just kept going up and up on our lightning counter toward 1 o'clock. I posted about this because it was just getting really excessive there, up to about 400 or so. And even though we didn't have any warnings, I posted about it over on Facebook and then Twitter/X. And then you watch our view here, just the action kind of moving along pretty slowly, really. That's why we ended up having a flash flood warning for a little bit toward parts of Putnam County, that darker green box. But it goes away here over the last few moments as we see the overall view. So I know north of our area, we've had some funnel cloud situations, water spout type situations. As we've looked here, just seeing the overall information coming on out there with this pattern, some flooding there towards Savannah this morning. North of our zones, if you're traveling up that way, let's do 24-hour rainfall. Again, I mean, this does stand out a little bit here. We still do have that flood advisory until 4:45 for parts of Putnam, even though the flash flood warning is now expired, canceled early. As we're looking toward that zone. Again, just looking at some heavy rain there in north parts of Union County. As we get toward Northeast 33rd Street, Northeast 30th Street, Alpine Special Road, Northeast 15th Avenue, Black Creek Road there. Again, seeing some heavier rain. Just watching our overall information. Let me go ahead and I'll broaden things a little bit more. I mean, and we'll put on the other radar view. You see quite a few storms up towards like Tennessee, North Alabama, just in the overall view here if you're traveling. But again, rip current risk really stands out along our Florida coast, so even down, south of our area. I'd be really mindful of that. I mean, just be, extra careful. Let me remind you guys of some of those safety tips. In fact, as we're focused on our counties, but some of you guys may be traveling toward the south there. So let me just remind you guys of that rip current risk here. I'm going to throw a graphic up about that right now. Just a strong current of water moving away from the shore can happen. It could be tragic there very rapidly. So just be very mindful of that, danger that we have. If you get caught in one, you want to swim parallel to the shore. That's what we're talking about here on this graphic with a escape route. But again, it's something you got to be really mindful of here with these overall conditions, these overall situations here. So I know even though we've had all this rain into where some of our spots, our drought is still up into where some of our different zones here. You see around Stark, Lake Butler, toward Middleburg, Lake City. Just extreme drought still, even though we had, better numbers toward areas toward the coast, as I'll see you on this graphic. We're still, really didn't overachieve much what we're supposed to get the last 30 days around Stark. Some spots even underachieving, but did overachieve a lot around Cedar Key. That's why the drought view is one that has improved quite a bit there, but it's still a 2 out of 5 on the scale there toward that area of Levy County. Even northern Levy is a 3 out of 5 with the drought still. So we still need more rain. Really need a tropical system probably, but I mean we had 20 inches in some spots down there and it still wasn't enough. I mean, some tropical systems you don't get that much, and this was over a longer period, which was better, really. But, right here where I'm at here in Bradford County, we still have a pretty significant drought situation as we're watching the overall view. There is now a system, by the way. I don't have a graphic in here for it set up at this point, but there's a system way out in the Atlantic, a small chance of development. And actually, it looks like now we have 2 areas in newest outlook I'm looking at here on my other source. One with a 30% chance the next 7 days, one with a 20%. They're pretty far out there. It's just too early to know where they would go or if they even would develop in a pattern here where we're seeing, less favorable than normal conditions here in the tropics. I mean, I'll remind you guys that we're dealing with an El Nino here, and that's going to lead to more storm acts in order to fall, which should help us with our rain deficit, hopefully. By then, October, November, December, but that could also mean more severe weather potential. So we'll just kind of have to watch out for that here as we look ahead in toward that timeline. We're just going to have to be paying attention here. Just going to have to be paying attention here with all of that as we give you guys those latest details. I mean, just have to be really cognizant here. Just have to be really cognizant of everything. And I'm looking at some information here behind the scenes right now. Let's pull up graphic in my system here about the El Nino. And you can kind of see here just the scenario where we have more of the impacts in toward the Pacific in terms of more tropical development here, with this type of scenario. So more wind shear equals less hurricane activity here in the Atlantic. Now it's the opposite when you have a La Nina, but this is an El Nino, so it'd make it hard for anything coming at us here from the east to develop. Granted, there's still possibilities, of course, and we've only had 2 names used so far on the list, so we'll just continue to be mindful here of all that here as we look at the situation. Granted, again, not something that we have to be overwhelmed about by any means in terms of just with what we're seeing out further out and toward the Atlantic Basin, which is good news. But, as we look ahead toward the fall, the winter, the spring, El Nino will be increasing those rain totals here around here. It would seem, in theory, the overall broad pattern here meteorologically. So that's something to be mindful of. Again, if you haven't noticed, I know I'm kind of switching topics because we had that flash flood warning go away here pretty quick on us there toward Putnam. It is now a flood advisory situation instead. Our lightning counters gradually going down, it would seem, in general here. As we look over the last little bit, granted we still have, spots where we have some hyper-local dangers, but again, we're like, parts of St. Johns County here, we're trying to keep you up to date. Let me pull up that velocity view. A little bit of wind enhancement here right around Palm Coast. That's kind of interesting to see as we get near Old Keens Road North. So that's, maybe some burst of wind energy there between Dirt Road, it says there on the map, and Old Keens Road North. So again, just watching things here for you. Watching that rip current risk, obviously, which is a paramount concern as we update you the very best we can. Let's show you here those feels like temperatures. You can see a lot cooler off toward the east here because of all that moisture cloud cover. Depending on where you're at, some spots haven't had as much moisture, but some spots in Duval County is picking up quite a bit of rain earlier on. Let's remind you guys of those 3-hour totals. There's some flood advisories in play on Arlington community there, Floral Bluff community. You see spots a couple inches there of rain. You saw Talleyrand popping up in there a couple inches. Quite a bit of rain toward parts of Duval County here in this afternoon. Earlier on though, more so because you can see how it's kind of retreated off. Never had any severe thunderstorm warnings or flash flood warnings. That's why we didn't break in. But you always have the interactive radar, clutter.com/radar, the mobile app here. over on Google Play and in the Apple App Store. It's listed as Clouds Weather there in Google Play, and in the Apple App Store it's listed as KC Cloud Weather. Of course, I posted about this about 1 o'clock, some of the storm acts in there over on Facebook there. KC Cloud WX, Facebook Cloud Weather. I shared it too, and you get flooded user information over there, and then you also have Twitter/X at Cloud Casey over on that platform, the Twitter/X platform. So I posted to that that radar map about 1 o'clock over to that. So again, just looking to see how much rain's falling in the north parts of Union County here over the last little bit. We'll kind of go through some of this here. We'll go through some of the details. I'm just going to check all my different sources here. You see, there's one right for a good bit. 2 inches, this is right around Florida State Prison there. That's quite a bit of a rainfall there as we're looking in north parts of Union County as we get into toward that zone. Oh, this is quite a bit of rain here. Let's see if this is going to become an issue. That might get a flash flood warning, to be completely honest with you. Because that's now starting to look worse than what we had toward the south. I mean, that's 5 inches here the last few hours west of St. Augustine. Granted, this is pretty rural, very rural out here. Let me pull up our flash flood risk product. We have different buttons on here. I still got to remember where some of these are, but you can see there's an elevated flash flood risk here as we look toward Morgan's Treasure Road, Adams Acres Road. Let me do something else. I'm going to try to click off of it so you can kind of see it's pretty rural out here, that overall, with the overall geography. Some homes, though, I mean, as they go back, let me pull up. We'll go in toward the hydro here again. I mean, that's, right to the east is where it was heavier, but where some of those homes were still 3.5 inches the last few hours there in the ward parts of the area. As we're looking there, parts of St. Johns County, still a special weather statement in play as well. As we kind of keep you informed. And that stands out a little bit, to be completely honest with you. Just the overall situation there as we're looking at things, just trying to keep you up to date. So. In the last week or so in terms of rain, I'll go ahead and take off these alerts, and then we'll go to the broad view. You'll be able to see quite a bit of rain in the last weekend in Levy County. But, other spots in the last 7 days, very little rainfall. I mean, it's just a big, differential here in Bradford. We saw that significant drought. We got a few inches over the last week, but nothing really overwhelming, which is, not, helpful in terms of the drought situation, just in a great way. I mean, really not seeing much of a shift there as we're looking at the overall information. Let me go ahead and see what else I can come up with here. Today we have, and it doesn't show well on here. Let me do it a different way. So we have a way to do this. I know tomorrow your general thunderstorm risk here in the light green. Today's general thunderstorm risk here, light green. It's not enough for a dark green, which is the marginal severe. And then Monday, the same type of deal for our area at least. And then as we kind of look here, I do want to show you. I do want to see here some of the hydrology with the excessive rainfall outlook. There is a day 1 flash flood risk for our area. So, in part we had that kind of coming to fruition a little bit toward Putnam with that flash flood warning for a little bit. See a little bit of Glenn County in our far northeastern peripheries under a 2 out of 4. I think it's 4 categories. I don't know if I said that right or wrong there, but this is we have 4 categories here for flash flooding compared to 5 for severe. This is a 2 out of 4 toward areas that left the coast a little, but 1 out of 4 for the rest of the zone. And then tomorrow you don't really see that around, and then on Monday not around. It's to our north here if you're traveling, towards some of those spots toward the north there as we're looking at the overall viewpoints. So let me see if there's any more questions, comments. Going to go back over to that computer real quick. Just appreciate everybody tuning on, interest in me here as we're updating you. Don't see anything, but just appreciate the viewership here on this Saturday afternoon. Appreciate everybody tuning in here as we monitor the overall weather scenario. I know if you're watching on YouTube, if you haven't already liked the video, make sure you like it. And then if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe as well so you see more content and more higher impact type situations as well. This is a pretty low impact in terms of like just the overall scenario in general, which is good news here, but we're still monitoring things, still trying to keep you informed the best I can. Let me see our 7-day here. You can see our rain chances going on down as we look ahead in general. Today's the highest rain chance. Doesn't mean you still couldn't get a pop-up stronger storm on some of these days, well, especially with that type of heat around. But the heat is going to be the bigger story. The heat index values being so high, going to be the bigger story here as we look ahead here in toward the timeline. So that's something to kind of be mindful of. Let me, we're going to pull up the coverage map though real quick. I'm going to pull up that coverage map as I remind you guys of the 38 counties that I cover. Just appreciate everybody tuning on in. We're going to wrap it soon probably, but just looking through everything here meteorologically. Again, not an overwhelming situation by any means. Yeah, let me remind you guys of our heat index story. Yeah, granted, I see it says so warm toward some of our zones here, and some of them are cool because of the rain. So I won't say that, but I'm even going to see this graphic here. So let's go away from the coverage map and remind you guys, just, I know it sounds like common sense, it is, but just don't forget anyone in a hot cars. Everyone operates on autopilot once in a while. Granted, it's going to be a bigger story as we look ahead with the heat versus today toward the east, granted toward the west. This is very relevant right now toward Tallahassee. They're in the 90s there. So just place a bag or other item in the back seat to remind you of passengers after you park. Place a stuffed animal in the front seat as a reminder to check for passengers, and consider additional methods such as phone alarms, partner buddy check-ins, or built-in car reminder systems. So again, just got to be mindful and, heat safety when working. Drink a cup of water every 20 minutes, even if you aren't thirsty for long jobs. Drink a beverage with electrolytes. Take regular breaks to rest during hot conditions. Skipping breaks is not safe. And seek periodic breaks in the AC if possible to spend time in the shade when outdoors. Again, this is more relevant as we look ahead toward next week and even after here, as we get later into August, it's looking like we're going to be above average in terms of temperatures. Even though those averages are going down a little, we're still going to be above average here as we look at the overall information. So you just got to be cognizant of that here as we look ahead toward the timeline. And then in terms of a precip there, as we kind of look ahead, I'm going to see a graphic on that now. It's actually a little bit drier than normal for some of us as we look ahead later on in the month here. So, that would be something that's kind of noteworthy as we look ahead toward to that time frame. We're starting to get back into high school football a little bit. That doesn't mean you wouldn't have a storm right over a high school football game or something at the wrong time. It very well will probably happen for some of you as we look ahead there as we get toward, I know it'd be August 21st here when a lot of those regular games get going to August 14th. Some, and especially as we're looking, I believe, it'd be to George's way as we look at the overall situation. So I believe that's the dates for that. I believe it's kickoff classics on the 14th around there for Florida for most, toward the FHSAA. But as we go ahead, I'm just going to look through, see if there's any other information I need to talk about here on this Saturday. Let's go back to analysis mode. We'll go over to our hydrology. We're going to do days 1 through 7. Let me see the overall forecast here. A couple inches here in spots as we look, but other spots less. This is the broad brush, as we look, but not an overwhelming pattern with rain, but definitely some rain. A lot of that's more, in the short term versus the longer range. So, as I get near the end of that, you see it's quite a bit less here. Just scrubbing through some of those days next week, but that overall pattern there. Just trying to kind of let you know there that overall story. Just kind of always intriguing here to go into all those details. Let me go ahead and just keep looking. I want to make sure we don't get a flash flood warning there towards St. John's before I wrap it, because we have seen a good bit of rain in that zone. It's not an overwhelming situation, I don't think, but some of our totals pretty high in here. But again, it's sitting right over St. Augustine. There would definitely be a flash flood warning in St. Augustine because they're more vulnerable to that flash flooding concern right in toward town there. I mean, right in toward town. I mean, you see only a couple of tenths there of an inch of rain. So again, just looking at the tools here in the toolkit. Gonna look here at the water vapor. You can see some moisture to the east, not so much to the west here. The green moisture in the upper levels there, upper levels. So that's intriguing to talk about, intriguing to look at. See northern Flagler on Old Kings Road North up toward US Highway 1. We have some heavy rain right now. Pretty heavy rain. Let's see how long this has been over that area. Pretty good bit. I mean, some of that there right in toward the I-95 area as well. So again, just trying to keep you up to date on that. Just looking through some of the information. I mean, again, the heat's going to be the bigger story here as we look ahead toward next week. So, that work week, that first week of school for a lot of local students here and local families. The routines change. It's going to be hot and drier. Not completely dry, as I showed you, but drier as we look ahead toward next week. This is hot for mid-August here. Any time of year it's hot, but, mid-August is kind of, unusual to be that warm. And I mean, the rainfall numbers aren't, overly different, from what we'd expect, but it's hotter than normal for sure. We'll look at some other information we're seeing. The pattern not really favorable for tropical development, though. Our water temperatures there are pretty warm. I mean, if you're going out of the beach, I mean, you're seeing some of that here toward the east. Of course, you got to watch out for the rip currents, but just giving you guys an idea here of some of these water temperatures. It's not 49, though. I know that. I don't know why it would show some of that there on that view, but you kind of get the idea. Looking at wave heights, we're not seeing anything overwhelming in this viewpoint, but we do have quite a bit of precipitable water here around, a lot of higher moisture content there as we're looking at the overall situation. Again, just going through all my tools in the toolkit. Let's look at this here in 3D. Right here, north of Palm Coast, right around Marineland, I think it'd be. Let's see if we can get in tighter. Yeah, right there, Marineland. Kind of right west of there. See some marine warnings as we're looking, but we're going to do this here on the fly. You see as we put this into 3D. Getting pretty high up there. I mean, you kind of, it's harder to look at sometimes here with the angles, but it's not going to show it exactly the right height. But you kind of get the idea. It's getting up there pretty good in terms of that vertical development here. So again, just watching the overall progression of things here on this Saturday. Again, the reason we jumped in here initially was that flash flood warning there toward part to Putnam, but that went away pretty quick there. It was on the board, and then, so you saw it kind of drop on off there as things moved away from that area around the Hollister zone, which is some good news. But we still have quite a bit of rain on that radar here. Those temperatures cooler off toward the east, but warmer toward the west there. In the 90s, you saw 93 toward Tallahassee on that map. Again, just looking through here. Some of the models developing stuff further west later on. We'll see if that, plays out like that. It's not out of the question. I think we've covered pretty much everything we need to. I just wanted to make sure we didn't get a flash flood warning in that one spot down here. I mean, this here now looks like a bigger concern than the other spot. Because, this spot is what I was kind of worried about a little bit in case they were to issue another one. But that rain is, generally, not completely, but generally dropped off in that zone. I mean, it's pretty rural. This here now, though, quite a bit of rain. 4 inches here. Still coming down pretty heavy, so we'll have to see what happens there. Let's go to our different products, our flood risk. You don't have anything on that right now, except the rip current statement. I'll take that off. You see how rural it is, though, which might be a sign that we don't need to worry overwhelmingly there. I mean, you do have I-95 in here, US Highway 1, but the bigger flash flood risk duo, but that's probably from what fell earlier. You see it's already moved out. That runs a little behind, but as we look at the overall information. Definitely wet on the roads here this afternoon. No ice, no snow. This isn't, January. This isn't North Georgia or something like that in terms of the overall pattern. But going to jump back over to my questions, comments computer. Just appreciate everybody watching. Again, just making sure you don't get a flash flood warning. Another one we had to warn, but it went away early before I cut this stream. I just didn't want to cut it and then get another warning. We have to go right back on. There's really not enough for me to justify this streaming the radar here for much longer either, unless we do get another warning, and then we'd have to be on anyway. So again, looking at some of these totals here, though, around US Highway 1 just east. I mean, right around the highway about 2 inches, but just east is 4 inches or so in our system. With the storm total there. It's pretty rural, though, as I've alluded to, but in Duval, not rural. Been a good amount of rain, not enough for a flash flood warning, but a flood advisory situation towards some of these different zones. Here are radar estimates. Again, some rain gauges are a little bit different than this, and those are your more accurate measurements. But a bit of rain here on a Saturday afternoon. Some little localized gully washers here coming on through. Again, here's the satellite. You see our tropical wave, the overall impact here, and the heating of the day, the interaction. Just watching this loop through one more time. See, for our neighbors up there in like Tennessee, some development, not as much as what we're seeing here, but some thunderstorm development as well with some of those Dakota cloud tops toward like western Tennessee, it looks like. Again, just looking through here, see some lightning here in northern Marion County getting going right around Northeast Highway 315, the Burbank community. You see around Grahamsville. I know you see Burbank there. This isn't California we're talking about. We're talking about Florida, and then you have a town there in southern Marion called Dallas. And this isn't Texas we're talking about here either. As we're looking along Highway US 301, as we're seeing here, a heavy downpour right around, it looks like villages, it looks like, let's see here. I'm trying to read that. Let me get this tilt right. Villages Buena Vista Boulevard. So Villages Buena, I can't, I know it just was a road like that around Orlando. but, not used to talking about that here, but I think I might have had it right. Again, looking here. Oh, we got a severe thunderstorm warning. I guess there's a good reason I stayed on. Okay, let's see what we're seeing with this. Okay, so this is a pretty short fused one here, so we're gonna have to stick with you. Okay, so let's see what we're doing with this severe thunderstorm warning. I thought honestly I was kind of staying on here, maybe a little long, but we got now a tornado possible tag with this as well. This was some weak rotation. I saw a little green and red. I just wasn't really sure if we were getting, too concerned with that, maybe coming together. But let me go ahead and I'm gonna change something up here. So we're gonna take this off for a second. I'm gonna take our rip current risk off for now because that's kind of getting in the way of things. We need to see that severe thunderstorm warning. So let me just change that really fast here. Again, just a one-man band, but it's all about protecting you, your friends, your family. We're going to turn that opacity down, and then we're going to set this to you again because you see some rotation right here on Ocean Shore Boulevard. Maybe, and it probably a little bit further west because it's a little displaced here. So let me read this statement off. I'm a little surprised to see this, to be completely honest, but I do see kind of what they're talking about. So the National Weather Service in Jacksonville at 3:06 p.m. is a severe thunderstorm warning for northeastern Flagler as well as southeastern St. Johns counties there in northeastern Florida. At 3:06 p.m. a severe thunderstorm is located near Marineland there or near Palm Coast, moving northeast at 15 miles an hour. So we're talking about Palm Coast, Marineland, and Crescent Beach. The Weather Service is urging folks to remain alert for a possible tornado. Tornadoes can develop quickly from severe thunderstorms. And if you spot a tornado, go at once into a basement. Of course, we don't have those around here, though. They just have that here in the standard nomenclature in these weather statements, or a small central room is what you want to get into in a sturdy structure. So, again, we have a severe thunderstorm warning now with a tornado possible tag for parts of St. John's and Flagler here until about 3:30 p.m. So, seeing some wind enhancement in here. Let's put some of these roads in here a different way. You see on Aspen away there, you have a Princess Place Road, Loop Drive. Severe thunderstorm warning in play. These aren't overwhelming, but there's a little bit of green and red mixing here. So gotta be careful with this. You see right here on Palm Coast, we get right in here 36 miles an hour as I look at the information, as I try to give you guys the information there. Let's just kind of loop this last few minutes. There's a little bit of that green and red trying to come in there, indicating maybe some weak rotation around Ocean Shore Boulevard. Taking the lighting off for a moment, but you see some heavy rain in here. Put the lighting back on. Just whenever thunder roars, you need to go indoors. Again, we have a severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag here as we get toward parts of St. Johns County and Flagler County there. So again, we have this potential. Again, the Weather Service saying the worst around Marineland. So right in there, you see Marineland. You see some of this maybe broader rotation even here on the Doppler on Beachside Drive, Deerwood Street. You can kind of see Ocean Shore Boulevard in there. Again, Hidden Treasure Drive. Again, we have some weak rotation within the Doppler algorithm. So we have some wind going toward the radar. We have some wind going away from the radar. So not enough for a tornado warning, but there's enough for a severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag. So again, we have a severe thunderstorm warning here now until 3:30 p.m. for parts of St. John's and Flagler. 60-mile-an-hour winds, a potential hazard if there's not a weak tornado in here, a weak spin up. So again, we have this severe thunderstorm warning in play here. Looking through all my different sources, just to make sure I'm not missing anything, as we do have this is kind of on the edge of about looks like 4,000 joules per kilogram of surface-based CAPE. So again, tracking this carefully here. Let me go ahead and see what else I have on my different platforms. Again, just trying to update you Gonna look through some things here this Saturday afternoon to try and enjoy things. We have a severe thunderstorm warning here on play for parts of St. John's and Flagler. So again, let's go to some of our different products. I'm gonna check our rotation mode here in just a moment. I'm just checking some modes on another computer source. Look, we had tighter rotation there a moment ago on my other source, honestly. But let's go ahead. It wasn't overwhelming, but this doesn't show it quite as well, maybe, but we'll go ahead and loop it this way. Again, just trying to be mindful of things here. So a little something down in here, but a little bit of a notch there as we get toward Palm Coast Parkway. Yeah, nothing's overwhelming, but a little bit of something here, a little bit of something there as we look at the overall information. Just trying to check some of our different products. I'm make sure we didn't have any, saw something in there. That might have just been a hail signature or something in between some of the storms. I'm just backing this up a little bit. It was at 258. Let me see what the radar looked like then. I don't think that's necessarily anything there, but again, let's go back to the current scan. You see our overall activity right here near the coast. Again, this is really intensified here in the last few moments. You see our lightning counter really going up. That's something to be mindful of. This whole band really has gotten, stronger. You see the purples, the magenta colors in that, especially if I take the lightning counter information off. The lightning information off, you see how we got more and more purple activity showing up. That's indicative of some upscale growth, some strengthening here as we have some different interactions going on here meteorologically. Again, just looking through here, we need to remain alert for a possible tornado, as we do have a severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag here. Severe thunderstorm warning for northeastern Flagler and southeastern St. Johns counties until 3:30 p.m. So I think, we're getting some different information on in. Let me see our latest update. Just got it out at 3:14. There's still a tornado possible tag. It's a thunderstorm located over Marineland or 8 miles north of Palm Coast, moving northeast at 15 miles an hour. A severe thunderstorm warning remains in effect until 3:30 p.m. for northeastern Flagler and southeastern St. Johns counties, Palm Coast, Marineland, Crescent Beach. Again, remember, you need to remain alert for a possible tornado, as tornadoes can develop quickly from severe thunderstorms. So if you spot a tornado, go into that small central room in a sturdy structure. So very important to keep in mind here as we kind of look to scrub back and forth. I'm checking our vantage points. We've been on the Jacksonville radar. Let me get back on in here. Let's go to the Valdosta for a moment. Some broad rotation aloft from that view there. That vantage point, that shows it a little bit, honestly. We watch these different loops here. We're going to continue to track this. Right here on Ocean Shore Boulevard, north side of Palm Coast is, you see Summer Haven, see Marineland in here. This is a, view from way up there, but this is giving me a different vantage point on things. There's some green and red in here right around Ocean Shore Boulevard. Might be getting a quick water spout right, there as it's going out toward the coastal waters. Again, the movement's been a little bit tricky with some of this because a lot of the flow has been a little bit different. We're switching directions, and that can be problematic sometimes to get that spin to get going. As we have the boundary interactions. And northeast at 15 miles an hour is that movement there. Northeast at 15 miles an hour is that movement. So again, I just seeing things here with the overall viewpoint, with the overall scenario here. Again, just trying to be here for you. Severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag. Just checking some of our different modes here. Again, the boundaries are switching direction here, and that can cause sometimes a spin to get down closer, toward the surface. At least maybe get a funnel cloud or something like that in here. You see some of these different roads. So again, right here we have some rotation. I mean, that's, gate to gate of about 60 miles an hour or so. Just going between some different modes here. Double checking some stuff that's about to be in the coastal waters, but we still have a lot of strong wind along this in general, some strengthening for sure. On this Saturday afternoon, catching people off guard, maybe here kind of switching direction, but you have your sea breezes involved and then things that just sift around on you, development here, stuff along those lines. Let's check power outages. Granted, it's pretty early on. Don't have anything over there yet. Again, it's a severe thunderstorm warning now for parts of St. John's and Flagler until 3:30. That's remaining in effect here as we're looking at the information. Just trying to keep you up to date. Scrubbing between our different modes here, different tools in the toolkit. I know you're just at the beach. You want to remember whenever thunder roars go indoors there, as lightning can strike miles away from a apparent thunderstorm. But right now we have some potentially severe characteristics in terms of that wind potential in here. Now hail, you guys might be wondering about that. Let's look here. Not really seeing much of that at all in this type of tropical air mass. But as we go ahead and look on in here, just seeing some of this wind here. We're on old A1A, moving into that zone. You saw Deborah Lane, Rollins Drive, Surf Drive, Bay Drive there. Looking down here, we have, that's on the periphery, but a little bit of wind around Beverly Beach as well, but not in the severe warning. Let's see if that's strengthening down there. I bet it is. Yeah, it definitely is down there as we get toward that zone west of Flagler Beach, east of Bunnell. So again, what I came on for initially, that flash flood warning was canceled early for parts of Putnam, but now our focus is a severe thunderstorm warning for parts of St. John's and Flagler until 3:30. Just continuing to keep you up to date. A lot of lightning in here. Fort Matanzas to Summer Haven, Marineland, Palm Coast. Let's go ahead and we'll switch this over past 15 minutes. You see our lightning counter just keeps getting higher and higher and higher here, which is a cause for concern a little bit. Granted, some of this is getting toward those coastal waters, but that can have impacts in and of itself. The accent can as well. So just got to be very mindful here. Got to be very mindful of the scenario. You see Palm Harbor Parkway, Cimarron Drive, heavy rain, a gully washer, but maybe a strong, the severe storm in here, not just the rain aspect, but maybe something a little bit beyond that there in terms of the overall pattern. Again, old A1A south there, just that old A1A area. Again, just looking at the overall informational details. Watching this severe thunderstorm warning till 3:30 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out here. Again, give you the view. This is south of St. Augustine, north of Flagler Beach are the worst. But Palm Coast, you're in here, pretty highly populated area. A lot of stores people are going to. That back-to-school type of period is back-to-school sales. And then just the beach plans here, I know. This overall area here is getting into the storms right now. A nasty storm here. The tax-free sales in play. And instead, you have a storm here that's keeping you inside. It's keeping you away from windows. As we're looking, you're trying to paint that picture there as we're looking right now toward parts of that zone. I know our traffic camera views more off toward the west with those 95 views for some. Granted, we're seeing that development down south. So, I'll go ahead and I guess I can look at some down here. It might not be the worst, but south of Palm Coast, north of Flagler and Beverly Beaches. Let me see if I can get a traffic camera view. I'm going to look at the other source here, just to appreciate everybody tuning on in. Looks like we have 6 of you watching right now on YouTube. Just appreciate your viewership here. We have a severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag right now. Parts of Flagler and parts of St. Johns counties. Let me see what we can kind of look here at. I'm going to look at some camera views if I can. I'm going to try to pull one up. Okay, mile marker 293 on I-95. We're going to see that wet go of it. Just give me about 3 seconds and I'll have that on up here for you, something along those lines. There you go. It's the Florida 501 viewpoint. As we're looking toward Interstate 95 in the overall vicinity here. The worst maybe a little north, but at least you see some of that lightning here on this camera view right now as we look at these inclement conditions. So again, a severe thunderstorm warning here right now with a tornado possible tag for parts of St. Johns and Flagler for the next 7 minutes here. As we're looking, again, a severe thunderstorm warning areas around Palm Coast there. That vicinity, more so than Flagler and St. Augustine. But I'm talking about Flagler Beach and St. Augustine. But it's more about Palm Coast area here. We have some heavy rain, gusty winds. This may not be showing the worst of it based on where this camera's at and what it's looking at. But it's showing some of the wind, showing some of the wet conditions, some of the lightning here at times. Just whenever thunder roars, you need to go indoors here as we're looking at the overall scenario. So again, just appreciate your viewership here. Let me go ahead and move away from that. Again, just trying to keep you informed. Definitely, folks out there having to deal with these conditions. Not ideal here. Not ideal. When you have, severe thunderstorm activity around, at least that potential. It's 88 degrees last check there was anyway over the Palm Coast Flagler County Airport, but I'm sure that temperature is dropping quick here on this Saturday afternoon. Again, trying to give you the latest. Trying to give you the very latest here. Ocean Shore Boulevard. Just watching here. Going between some of our modes. Let me see if we have any updates. They may extend this, but let me just see if we have any updates from the Weather Service in Jacksonville here. Nothing yet. They haven't said one or the other here what they're going to do, but if we get a new warning, you'll see it pop up. If they're going to expire at 3:30, then we'll know, and then it'll go away at 3:30. It would anyway. There'd be a different polygon maybe coming into play, but we shall see. A lot of the worst of the wind starting to get in the coastal waters. It would look like still a pretty nasty storm though toward this overall area, but heavy rain. I mean, these rain rates right on Marineland there. You're going out there to visit on this Saturday, something like that. I mean, these are some nasty rates. This is, over a shorter period, but I mean, that's 7 inches. If it fell at that same rate for an hour, it's not going to, but the last few hours, you don't see a lot there yet, but toward the west, when this accident was kind of handing back some, you see how much fell in a more rural area, 5 inches or so, as we're looking east of Highway 1. So, see all this heavy rain, though, in here. You see Palm Coast Parkway, Colbert Lane. You see Ocean Shore Boulevard, North Ocean Shore Boulevard. Marina Drive, Whitney Drive, Deerwood Street. Again, let's look at some of our different vantage points here. For Matanzas, a heavy, heavy downpour. Surf Avenue, August Circle, June Lane. We're really in tight here, but Marina Drive, Whitney Drive, Beachside Drive, Deerwood Street, a strong to severe thunderstorm. Some of that accident coming through. What a road name that is. Laughing Gull Lane, Hidden Treasure Drive there as well. Sadie Oak Lane. Surf View Drive, San Juan Drive. Deborah Lane, Windy Lane, Rollins Place. Atlantic Drive, Bedford Drive, Andover Drive, Bristol Lane, Harmon Beach Drive, there's a lot of different roads that surround the thunderstorm activity. Clubhouse Drive, as we're looking toward the Bonterra area. As I go ahead and get that on in there, as we go ahead and look at things. Waterview Drive. Again, just some of the different roadways here with this severe thunderstorm warning. Let's see if they've sent out an update here. Okay, they're going to expire this here in 1 minute. They're going to let it expire in 1 minute. The weather service. The severe thunderstorm warning for northeastern Flagler and southeastern St. Johns counties will expire at 3:30 p.m. The storm was prompted a warning and has moved out of the area. Therefore, the warning will be allowed to expire. However, gusty winds and heavy rain are still possible with the thunderstorm. And, of course, you can always report severe weather information, to your nearest law enforcement agency, and they'll relay a report to the National Weather Service in Jacksonville. You can they'll relay them to me, and I'll relay them if you have any damage reports here, some substantial stuff here. You can send a picture in to the Cloudweather app here. That one is safe to do so. Of course, right now it's not safe to do so with all this lightning around. You got to be very, very mindful of that here. And whenever thunder roars, you need to go indoors here as we're looking at things, as we're monitoring things. That warning's about to go away. There's still a lot of lightning right at the beaches. I mean, just kind of painting that picture here. We have our different buttons I can use. And I mean, you see right here at the sand. Literally, we're looking at the sand here right now. You're looking at these homes. And then I'll put the radar back on. And there you go, the heavy rain. As we're keeping you guys up to date here. Again, just trying to update the very best I can. Again, you see all this. You want to enjoy the beach. I'm so tired, it's like having trouble. But you see all this fun water. And be careful with the rip current risk. But, you see the sand. But again, you have some issues here. You have some rain in toward these areas. You have some storm activity here, really, as we're looking at things. Even if it's not technically severe warned anymore past 3:30. But seeing some stuff popping in Marion County here. Nothing overwhelming, but we'll watch. That electrical energy down there. Just looking at the overall viewpoint here meteorologically. See some stuff there toward Taylor County, around the Perry area, and really off west is where the focus of it is. I mean, right in Perry, you're wondering, like, not really, but we'll back it up 15. You had some sprinkles, but see Hampton Springs, there's some of the movement a little bit different as we get further out, with some of the flow a little bit different as we get further back. The overall pattern here. Let's switch to the other radar view. This is pretty heavy activity here around northeast 101st Court, northeast 101st Terrace, northeast 103rd Avenue. Again, just looking at everything here on that Doppler. Some heavy rain right at the coast, even if it's not technically severe warned, because the worst of the wind is off into the coastal waters, you still got to be very mindful. Let's see if we have any power outages to show you. We have some just south in toward Volusia County. We don't have any in St. John's or Flagler showing up yet, but they may already be, have happened. We just don't have them into the system yet. But look at 12-hour rainfall estimates. Just trying to watch things here for you. Some spots a good bit of rain here. Hyperlocal locations. I'll zoom in here. See quite a bit of that. Let's check this from, it's starting to slack off, but let's check it from the, other modes here. I mean, you see Marineland, not as much there compared to just west. I mean, what's a big differential over a small distance? Granted, that's adding up some around Marineland, but we're literally talking. I'm trying to see my other point here. I mean, within about 4 or 5 miles of each other. What a big difference. Just a few miles will make with these storms. See a little bit of wind here in Flagler County pick up on this periphery around, Colbert Lane, Moody Boulevard. You see Painters Hill, River Trail Drive. Do have an advisory now for that till 4 o'clock. A level below a severe thunderstorm warning. At 3:33, Doppler is tracking a strong thunderstorm near Bunnell, moving northeast at 15 miles an hour. Wind gust around 40. Minor flooding to the heavy rainfall possible there. Gusty winds can knock down tree limbs and blow around unsecured objects. Minor flooding possible due to heavy rain. You just got to watch out. Palm Coast, Flagler Beach, Bunnell, Marineland, and Beverly Beach for at least some strong activity. So, not technically severe right now, but maybe strong activity. Again, this is spotty activity for zones. Some spots a lot lighter though with the rain, but one thing I don't really love is you might be thinking, well, okay, we have lighter rain around, so I can just step outside and maybe kind of try to walk around in it because it's not that big of a deal. But the problem is we're getting some of these strikes here that are in light to moderate rain that can really catch you off guard. You're trying to run errands. You might be trying to go into a store, leave a store, and you still have a little bit of an issue here with lightning strikes here and there that are kind of in this light to moderate rain that might catch you off guard a little bit. So that's something to be very mindful of. It's a cloud to ground that can be, a lot more problematic than cloud to cloud for sure. As we look at the information. Again, we had a flash flood warning that went away pretty quick, but then we stayed on a little while. We were looking, monitoring some stuff, and we had a severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag there towards St. John and Flagler, but that just went away here as I loop at the last half hour. You see how we had a yellow box. We got, shaved away some, and then we got that to, move off there toward the east there now mostly, but we have some stuff on the southern periphery, around Colbert Lane and Moody Boulevard, Old Keynes Road, South Seminole Woods Boulevard. A little bit of weak rotation maybe on that periphery. Nothing crazy, but these aren't that high of numbers at all when you add them together even, but a little bit something to south of State Road 100 there, it looks like. southern part of Flagler Beach because, once you get below this line, that gets you into Volusia County, a different area. I don't cover, Volusia, and that's a different weather service there. So south of that line, that's really all kind of Flagler Beach until you get to that line there. And then, south of that, though, you get eventually down to Ormond by the sea and Ormond Beach and the like. But again, just trying to update you. Again, some stronger winds down there. Again, just trying to update you. Going between our different modes. Not seeing any outages on there, which is good, but it doesn't mean there haven't been any. It could just be taking a little bit of time to get them in, the reports. It's always worry about lightning here. Just whenever that thunder roars, you need to go indoors. Lightning can strike miles away from a parent storm. Just making sure we don't get another severe thunderstorm warning down toward Flagler Beach or something. And, if I feel a little bit better about this, then I'll probably wrap it. But some wind enhancement in Marion, it's not overwhelming, but again, just looking at things the best I can. Going between all the different sources. I know overall that spatial coverage next week looks better here. It's a 7-day in terms of less rainfall. But you can see how we're pretty wet and stormy today. Doesn't mean we couldn't still have some stronger storms, even with the less rainfall, because warmer temperatures, you can still have quite a bit of instability around. So I've got to be aware of that. Let me look at the questions and comments again as I go ahead and go back to that computer source. Just appreciate everybody tuning in, trusting me here on this Saturday afternoon. Those Saturday afternoon plans this last weekend before school starts back for our Florida County, their public schools. They start back between Monday and Wednesday of next week. So just got to be very mindful here. People's plans are being disrupted, unfortunately. Got to be very mindful. Let's go ahead and pull up the coverage map. We're going to remind everybody we're 38 counties. Just appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, looking through some of the information behind the scenes here. Just really appreciate everybody's viewership. Watching all the different data points. I'm going to go ahead and try to get up another map here. Try to give you a look at some things. I haven't done this in a little bit. I'll get the European model up. We'll just go out a little longer here with this. I got to switch some stuff around because it's still set for tropics axis, and we're not concerned about that right now. Not for our area. A couple systems way out in the Atlantic, but low chances of development right now. Way early to know if they would get anywhere close to us. We have all that wind shear, in general in the pattern and the basin, it would seem, because of El Nino. So we're not overly concerned right now with that, but we'll be watching. But nothing of imminent concern. They're way out to be, a week plus before, get it anywhere close to the continental U.S. But okay, I think I got our European model ready. Let me just make sure our dates are correct on this. We'll kind of play this out. I need to zoom in a little bit closer to our area. In fact, I have it set more for tropics if we had a bertha out there. But we'll just go ahead and send this to everybody at home on the fly. It is the latest 12Z run in. So again, we were looking at our 38 counties on this map, but then I got that set on my other mode now here. So looking, you see some shower action even in the evening according to this further west. We'll see if it plays out like that. I'll back it up real quick. I mean, on the short term, it's not going to do the best, but it does good with broad trends. So let's kind of go forward here. We'll go in toward that Sunday. You see some action here. 60% covered to what I had on that forecast in terms of the overall situation. So there's quite a bit of moisture still lingering on the Sunday. We'll see if it plays out like that. But then on the Monday, you see less, but still a good bit of development. But then as we get into toward Tuesday, things should start slacking off some. And you see that trend. And then as we get into toward Wednesday, we're just starting the day off here. In fact, let me change our time settings. I can go out further with this. This is into Thursday. It still shows some development here as we're updating you. As we're being mindful. I'll go to the 12th. This is on Wednesday there about 4 o'clock. I mean, you see some action. I scrub back and forward, but it looks like Thursday's a little bit higher. I mean, we started to have maybe inch up a little bit later on after they dip some, but we'll see. I know that Thursday is going to be your 13th, and that'll be, the anniversary, the 22 anniversary. I don't know how that's been 22 years, but 22 years since Hurricane Charlie came through, and that Wednesday there, as I back things up, it'll be 22 years since we had Tropical Storm Bonnie. The day before Charlie, we had another tropical system hit Florida. It was a lot weaker, but it spawned a significant tornado into Duval County, did Bonnie. It hit in the Panhandle on a Thursday, the 12th, and on the Friday the 13th, ironically, or, unfortunately, there, Charlie hit it down to Punta Gorda and came up there. 22 years since those two storms hit. Again, Bonnie was a pretty weak tropical storm in the Panhandle. It wasn't a big deal overall, but it spawned a local tornado toward our area here as we were looking at the overall situation. A significant one toward Jacksonville. 22 years since that on that Wednesday, which will be the 12th, and then the 13th, Punta Gorda, Hurricane Charlie went all the way through Orlando, significant damage there as well, on that Friday the 13th back in 04. So that 04 hurricane season was wild for sure as we're looking at the overall picture. Again, Wednesday coming up the 12th is that Bonnie anniversary in terms of the tornado, and the 13th, which this year is Thursday. That is the anniversary of Charlie hitting. It was on Friday the 13th back in 2004. So again, just looking at the situation with that, but so in the model, we're going to go back to the current radar. Looks like we have some more development now here in toward parts of the Beverly Beach area there. You see around Ocean Shore Boulevard. Again, you see some wind there, southern part of the county. That looks like, ooh, that's interesting. Stuff coming together there. That's a little bit of gate to gate. I know it's way far from the radar, though. That's the only thing, but that's gate to gate there. I mean, hopefully that's, a loft and not getting down to the surface. It's a very rural area, mind you. Very rural. A few homes in there that are on Carter Trail. If you happen to be watching on Carter Trail, let me know what's going on there, because it looks like some displacement a little, but we're so far up on the radar. Let me take the Vedasta mode. Can't really tell from there. Tampa. So something. Tallahassee. Too far. But yeah, a little bit of something with some, interactions going on there. You see the merging of the activity. And that can sometimes get a quick spin there. As we look toward parts of southern Flagler County. Again, that last scan is kind of interesting. A little bit of gate to gate showing up there around Circle S Road, Carter Trail. It's very rural out here, mind you, but for at least one scan, I bet it's going to go in the next scan. That's some noteworthy gate to gate there. But we're way high up on the radar, 7,000 feet, but it's the closest scan you'll get to that area here from the 4 radars that we show you. I don't think Melbourne's any closer. I'll check behind the scenes, make sure, but I'll look here at that scan as we update you. I'm gonna check things. Gonna go through here. It's showing it too. The Melbourne radar is also showing this rotation. I know they're both way up there, but I mean that's higher up about. Let's see. That is the beam height on that is about 8,000, 9,000 feet. It's about seven or maybe even just 6,000 feet or so. We have some rotation here in our southern periphery here. This is some rotation then. There's a loft at least. Both radars showing it. I mean, the shear rate probably doesn't have it quite right there, but we have some rotation on this. I mean, we have that tropical environment, a little bit of spin, interactions with things going in different directions. And it's very rural out here, but there are a few homes. So I just wonder, I know so far from the radar, I certainly hope we don't have any type of debris signature because that'd mean something a lot worse than what I would think. Because now we haven't talked about this here in the last couple of months really, but debris height is proportional, and radar height is proportional here to tornadic strength. So let's say you have a debris signature, you're only seeing it up to 2,000 feet, it's probably a weaker tornado. But if you see that debris lofted to a higher height there, maybe 5,000 feet, 8,000 feet, that can indicate you hit a stronger tornado. But here, our beam height, the lowest we can get down here is 6,700 feet, meaning you'd have to have a pretty strong tornado to be able to get debris to, something like this to be in the correlated correct spot. It'd have to be in the correct spot to be considered a possible debris here, but we're not seeing that, and you would not want to see that. I mean, if you saw that blue right in there at this height, that would be really concerning, meaning you probably had something more like an EF2 tornado, but we would not expect that here, because we're so far from the radar site. It'd be very unusual to see a tornado actually touching down at this part of our viewing circle here, because you'd have to take something stronger, and we generally don't have that. Most of our tornadoes around here are EF0, EF1. So, again, just trying to update you here. In fact, let me show you. We have a graphic in here I was working on the other day. I was wondering if I hadn't heard anything about the Keystone situation, but we had a, report, to be confirmed about that funnel cloud actually being a tornado in terms of any touchdown type of damage there. But I did get a graphic. I didn't have to maneuver a couple things because I had set it up in case we actually did have that damage there. Actually come on in if I can see if it's in here. It should be in here near the end of my show. But I had set it up just in case here, but haven't heard anything from the Weather Service on that. So let me just see if I can change that around a little bit. We'll try to put it in here just for this purpose if I can find it in here. Again, just appreciate everybody tuning in, trusting me. Appreciate your viewership. It might not be something I can find right on the fly here, but something I was working on here behind the scenes. Just looking here through all this. Just a one-man band, but it's while we're on, I thought I would try to pull that up if I could. Something I hadn't really thought too much about the last few days since we hadn't heard anything, but just trying to look through here. Okay, I don't see that graphic in here apparently, but not right off. But EF0, EF1s, lower type of strength tornadoes for sure. That's generally what we get, an EF0 is 65 to 85 miles an hour with those type of winds, and not much higher than your typical severe thunderstorm, even with the overall scale. And I didn't mean to show that, but again, and let's try that again. I'm hitting the wrong buttons here, but so I haven't been on for a little bit. But again, just appreciate everybody tuning in, trusting me. Appreciate your viewerships. All that viewership here from everybody. You see how that kind of weakened on out some. latest scan or so. So yeah, some wind enhancement here in southern Marion County on Orange Blossom Hills. We'll watch that. There's an advisory there until 4:15 for parts of Marion. A lot of this in our southern periphery. You'll see some of those temperatures here right now. You see into toward the 70s further east. A lot warmer further west. 94 Bainbridge, 93 in Tallahassee, 92 Madison. I'm seeing some wind around the relay community there. Our lightning cluster just north of the villages here, which, the village is really, and that's kind of just outside of the area, but Wearsdale to Orange Blossom Hills is our area. Because, the weather service here, this is the Jacksonville Weather Service, but as you get down here, our different counties involved, you have a Sumter County, that's the Tampa Weather Service. Even though it's the Orlando TV market as far as, I understand. But then this is Lake County, and that is the Melbourne Weather Service, Orlando Weather Service, and Orlando TV. So kind of interesting how it's different. None of those aren't my area there, but this right here, that delineation, because this is, the Marion line. And again, that's south, once you get south of that line, okay, we just got a warning. I guess they're watching, the radar trends just like I am. But again, you can kind of see here. Okay, so this is the area here toward the south. We're talking about Sumter. We're talking about Lake there with the overall picture. And Sumter, Tampa Weather Service, Tampa Ruskin, but Orlando TV. This is Melbourne Weather Service, but Orlando TV. But we have a warning, so let's get to that. Back to, we need to get back to imminent stuff versus kind of just talking through things here. We got a new severe thunderstorm warning popping on up now. New yellow box. Let's go till 4:30. So let me go ahead and read that off here from the Weather Service in Jacksonville. Okay, no tornado possible tag here, but they're saying it's moving north at 10 miles an hour. We have a severe thunderstorm warning for southeastern Marion County here and northern Florida until 4:30. At 3:53, a severe thunderstorm was located over Lake Weir or near the villages moving north at 10 miles an hour. Ocala, Lynn, Wearsdale, Santos, the village of Briar Meadow, Ocklawaha, Moss Bluff, Silver Spring Shores, Lake Weir, and Bellevue. So again, just trying to keep you informed here on the overall scenario. Again, our algorithm is trying to take us toward the south, but Weather Service says north. It kind of looked like north here with the overall developmental trends. So we have a severe thunderstorm warning now. You see Ocala's right on the edge of this. Again, till 4:30 p.m. Let me see if there's any more questions, comments here on this Saturday. I know we have a viewer there. It looks like Fissel Arwa and Nirvana asking, will Duval get more storms tonight? Let's go ahead and go up there real quick with our view then. So we'll go back to the severe thunderstorm warning in just a moment. I'll go back to that. And right now, based on this, you got to watch out for some rogue lightning strikes, but a lot of the lighter rain should keep us out of storm activity, I would think, really getting going again because our temperature is really down there in toward the 70s. So it'd be hard to get more storm activity. You have lesser storm energy, and that's kind of showing that there on the futurecast as well for Duval in that area. So probably no more storms toward Duval. Some lightning, though. Just whenever thunder roars go indoors here, some light rain, light to moderate rain, but not, the robust stuff probably. Not like what they're getting down in toward Marion County right now with this new severe thunderstorm warning until 4:30 p.m. as we look here on Orange Blossom Hills, around Sunset Harbor, southeast 115th Avenue. Again, we have a severe thunderstorm warning pretty far away from the radar. Let's check the Tampa radar. Is that one actually closer? That's 7,500 feet. And then Jacksonville would be, yeah, Tampa's close. That's kind of why I had that in here because there's a few spots in here that Tampa's actually our closest radar. That's why I picked that one. The three were really obvious: Jacksonville, Tallahassee, but Austin. When I was getting this set up here with Barron, but was it between maybe Tampa or would we want to use Southeast Alabama or Melbourne? I decided to go with Tampa. This is technically the closest radar here then for our far southern periphery. A few spots in here. It's a hard radar, spot to look at. It's really a whole radar hole, but it's a spot here where we, don't have any really lower beam, information, but you can kind of see here as we look Sunset Harbor. Just trying to keep you up to date here on this. Again, it's a thunderstorm morning for parts of Marion County now until about 4:30. So let me go ahead and look at the latest information on this. I'll go ahead and zoom back out here. So that's your information on the screen, but at 3:53, a severe thunderstorm was located over Lake Weir near the villages, moving north at 10 miles an hour, 60-mile-an-hour wind gust, possible Ocala, Lynn, Weirsdale, Santos, the village of Briar Meadow, Ocklawaha, Moss Bluff, Silver Spring Shores, Lake Weir, and Bellevue. So I know the algorithm says south. Let me take that off because the weather service is tracking this north. Let me put a storm track on this then, since it's sitting right at the coast. This isn't just a flash flood warning here, in terms of those aren't exactly easiest things to track. So, okay, north at 10 miles an hour. So let me go ahead here. North at 10. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll loop this real quick. Just looping around. I mean, I'll go ahead and track it from the worst to the lightning. I don't know. It still might not be the easiest thing to track here, to be honest. It's already getting heavy rain to the north of this, but conditions might worsen in some of the spots that I'll see here in a second as we look ahead. So you see in Ocklawaha, Candler, Silver Spring Shores. As we keep you informed over the next little bit, things might worsen in those spots. You're already getting heavy rain, but your lightning might pick up there in toward those spots over the next little bit. It's at least a possibility. As we're seeing things here around southeast. Let's see here. Okay, southeast Timaquan Road, southeast 115th Avenue. We have this severe thunderstorm warning here till 4:30 p.m. The yellow box. Let's pull up power outage information, see if we have anything new. A little bit in Flagler out now. Let's go over currents. We're going to pull up some of the other information. County power outage total, 400 out in Flagler. Seeing this wind here. Let's pull on some of these roads. Around Ocklawaha, around Private Drive, East Highway 25. Seeing some pretty strong winds in here. Some hail signatures maybe. I know we're looking pretty far up. Again, as I've talked about, let's go back. I got to remember that we need to use the Tampa radar down here. I'm not, I don't use it very much, but this is one of those spots we actually need to stick with that because it's a lower beam height. So again, I'm just trying to keep you informed here. They are saying hail probably less than 3/4 of an inch in diameter, but again, I'm just trying to keep you guys informed here the best I can. Sunset Harbor, southeast 115th Avenue. I know sometimes we get repetitive in this, but maybe a little bit of hail in here. We're looking between Orange Blossom Hills, Sunset Harbor, and Stanton. East Lake Weir's in here. The rain not necessarily adding up in there too much yet, but that could start to change. We'll go to the Jacksonville view for this. You can see some of that wind over there and rain. Again, parts of Marion. See some of this wind, 61 dBz. That's pretty high up there in terms of the overall algorithmic signal. Let's go to Tampa's view. So a little bit less because we're not looking as high. So, not quite as high down to the surface, maybe with some of this, or strong down to the surface based on the overall differentials. So, again, it's a thunderstorm warning for parts of Marion County till 4:30 p.m. The worst is not in Ocala right now, not even in Bellevue, though. You're hearing the rumbles of thunder, I'm sure, from Bellevue and toward Marion County. But as we look toward the east here, you can see around southeast 144th Place, southeast Sunset Harbor Road. Again, just seeing the overall activity here on that viewpoint. Let's try to put this into 3D. We'll try to, tilt this up here. You definitely see some of that upscale growth here meteorologically. As I tilt this all the way around here, giving you that viewpoint here of things. A lot of this storm activity. Definitely seeing that here in the frame. As we go ahead and get back on, and you see all this wind here moving toward Ocklawaha, right in toward that neighborhood in there. You see some of these different homes being impacted here by this severe thunderstorm, maybe around East Highway 25, Southeast 135th Terrace, Southeast 135th Court. Seeing some of this impact, at least rain, but again, the velocity mode shows some stronger winds coming on in here. Right across the water. That's one good thing about going to geography mode here, being able to see that. Kind of getting that vantage point here. You see Ocklawaha. See that area there with the impact. We're talking about Lake Weir, of course. Just seeing the overall meteorological storyline. Again, not much of a flash flood risk. I just had this up kind of to show you that lightning right over the lake. Don't want to be out of the lake right now. For sure around Lake Weir. As we're updating you. Just trying to be here. Again, parts of southern Flagler. That's not severe over there, but we had some weak rotation with that. I was noting a little while ago. Again, trying to update you. Southeast 115th Avenue. Some heavy rain, a lot of these other roads in here as well. And there could be some rudder displacement a little bit, so you got to keep that in mind. But coming up right off the lake there, Lake Weir into Ocklawaha, some heavier wind coming on in. Some of those lake houses, some of those docks there, getting some of that stronger wind in here possibly. You can see it from that vantage point. You see the rain at least, but maybe some hail in here at points. As we look at the Barron button. Again, just trying to update you. Trying to be here for you. These inclement conditions. You can see this wind energy here, Ocklawaha. This isn't going to so overwhelming, but remember we're looking higher up. And let's use this vantage point. Both radars are showing it higher up at least. I'm looking at the Tampa view, see lightning way downstate there with that. But again, it's showing a best view of some of our far southern zones. Right here around Ocklawaha. Some of this wind enhancements. If a thunderstorm warning in play. I'm going to check questions, comments again. Just appreciate everybody tuning on in. Appreciate your viewership. Going to take a quick 60-second break. Going to gather some more information here. Keep it tuned to Cloud Weather's severe weather coverage on this Saturday. It's August 8th here, 2026. I'll be back here after this short 60-second break. In the last half decade or so, our area and the region have been through a lot. Stay safe, but it's going to be memorable. I was there around 4 p.m. to document them. Life-threatening situation here. So, again, that's the storyline there. Oh, I think we just had another power flash. Another power flash. Sometimes Bradford County is a tough spot to see a spin-up tornadoes, so we just want you to go ahead and be inside and away from windows. Can't even completely rule out a quick spin-up tornado, so things have started to escalate here. Please take shelter. This is going to cause a lot of damage. Radar-confirmed tornado in southeastern Georgia. We're seeing areas there around Perry, bear the brunt of this, coming into these communities and ravaging them. That's what we got to get you guys out. You got to run from that water. You got to evacuate. You got to follow these orders. This is as serious of a situation as I've seen. This is the eye wall. This is where some of the worst of the weather is. When hazardous weather threatens, trust clouds weather. Back here now, we got a new severe thunderstorm warning just being issued in the last few moments for parts of Flagler County now. So just getting that information on in. Looking through some of the sources here coming out at 4:07 p.m. A new severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Flagler County. So let me go ahead and read that off here. The latest from the Weather Service on the severe thunderstorm warning. We're talking about at 4:07 a severe thunderstorm located near Flagler Beach is nearly stationary. So Flagler Beach, Beverly Beach. Let me go ahead and zoom into that area here so you can see what I'm talking about. Right over Flagler Beach, we have a severe thunderstorm warning here. As we're looking at the overall scenario, again, right at the beach, there's some wind damage potential possibility. As we put on some of the roads in toward this area, see Lantana Avenue, Avalon Avenue, 3rd Street, Moody Boulevard. Again, a new severe thunderstorm warning now for parts of Flagler County. See that small yellow box there until 4:30. Again, just getting that in from the Weather Service at 4:07. A severe thunderstorm located near Flagler Beach is nearly stationary. I expect damage to roof, siding, and trees there. Flagler Beach, Beverly Beach. So I know torrential rainfall is occurring with this storm and may lead to flash flooding. So do not drive your vehicle through flooded roadways. Let me go ahead and see how much rain has fallen here in that area over the last little bit. We'll go ahead and try to keep you up to date. We'll go ahead and look in here. Again, a couple inches as we're looking at the overall mapping. Again, we have 2 severe thunderstorm warnings now out until 4:30 p.m. for portions of the covered area, our southern periphery. As we're looking at things, again, we're seeing a severe thunderstorm warning there for parts of Flagler County. See our pretty high DPC values, but again, the big story is 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts possible down there toward Flagler County. Again, down there toward Flagler County, some 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts a possibility. As we look at our different scans here, the Doppler presentations. So, at 4:07, a severe thunderstorm located near Flagler Beach is nearly stationary. Some 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, Flagler Beach, Beverly Beach. So just going to go ahead and keep looking at things here, scooting my chair back up toward the computer here as I've been running between some of our different modes. Again, just appreciate everybody tuning on in. Let me go ahead and zoom back over here now toward our other warning or parts of Marion. Let's go to the Tampa radar for that. You see a little bit of that wind enhancement in here. As we look, some of these greens, showing up a little bit, and some of these reds, not overwhelming, but just a severe thunderstorm warning in effect over here until 4:30 p.m. So let me go ahead and read off the information here. Let me go ahead and read off the information here on this severe thunderstorm warning. The latest updates as they come on in. We're talking about areas there of Marion County. The latest was at 3:53. A severe thunderstorm was located over Lake Weir or near the villages, moving north at 10 miles an hour. So, again, that's the storyline with that. Severe thunderstorm warning for parts of Marion County until 4:30 p.m. You see Candler, Ocklawaha, the Lake Weir area right in there. And as I've talked about, there's our lake, a little bit of a flash flood risk in there too. But you see our lake I've been talking about. You see our severe thunderstorm over that way as we're looking toward parts of Marion County. And then we get over toward the east here. Get over toward the east. Severe thunderstorm warning out that way. I'm just trying to update you. A lot of the worst, the wind seems to be adding to coastal waters, but there's still some of that lingering potential here. Maybe right around Ocean Shore Boulevard. I keep seeing that road here today, but Daytona Avenue, Palm Avenue, Central Avenue again. Seeing that overall impact. The reason this is shaped a little bit, interestingly, a little bit, I guess funky there. The best way to describe it, is we have this here. We have it. It's like an L shape because the weather service is different. That's the Melbourne office, so they didn't issue anything down there for their periphery, or their part of their area as we're looking at the overall situation. But you have 2 yellow boxes. That's why we're having to stay with you right now. We have 2 severe thunderstorm warnings. And both go to 4:30 p.m. So you have the action down in here. In that box, within that box, just I'm drawing them broadly, our little X's here, but just to tell you guys where the potential is, you just have to be very mindful. Just trying to be mindful here. Again, the overall situation that we're monitoring. Just going between our different modes. I'm going to look here at the satellite view. See all that development. Let me check power outages again. 2% out in Flagler. Let's see what that number looks like. The actual total, that's 1,500 customers now in the dark in Flagler County. That's pretty impressive. Not necessarily in a good way. I have another way to check Flagler information. Let me see if I can go over to another source here. Again, just appreciate everybody's viewership here on this Saturday. This August 8th here, 2026. Just seeing if there's any details, that I'm not, seeing on my one source, but I may be seeing on the other source over here. There's definitely been some darker skies there toward Flagler Beach, looking at a different source. I can't see that on the air, but just seeing some different images coming on out there toward social media's way. But again, I'm just trying to update you. Not an ideal beach situation, not an ideal beach day there toward Flagler Beach. Going back over to the Barron Computer source here. Just trying to watch things. See all this heavy rainfall here. More lightning over here, it looks like. You see 159 last 15. Some of that's on the edge of the area or out of it, but here it's about 69. But then if I move that out of the way, even less than that. So, yeah, that looks like in general. I'll zoom in to make sure. But yeah, that lightning count's slowing down. We're seeing it drop toward parts of Marion County here. We're seeing that drop toward parts of Marion. It looks like some weakening as things kind of move slower, but gotta watch out for some of that excessive rainfall potential. See some spots already picking up a couple inches in there. Around East Lake Weir, right over to Lake Roy, Lake Weir area. You see in Flagler County. You see some of that heavier rain. That lightning there. I'll go to the broad view though, and that count is similar to what we had earlier in the day, but we didn't have the severe potential, in terms of the actual warnings popping up toward Duval County, even though we had a lot of lightning there around 1 o'clock. I posted about it over on Facebook and the like as we're looking at the overall situation. But, Twitter/X posting about it there. But, lightning is not a severe indicator in of itself. It can be, kind of something that tells you something severe, but it's not proportional. It doesn't mean more lightning doesn't mean you're going to get a warning or vice versa. A lot of times there's a correlation, but it's not direct. We had a tornado about 10 years ago in Valdosta, a strong tornado. Didn't have any observed cloud to ground lightning with it. So that was in, wintertime. It was very unexpected. Along a line, it was just all of a sudden spotted there. It was not a line that was looking like it's going to be severe at all. And then we got a quick spin up tornado there. So things can happen really unusually towards some of our different zones. For day one severe risk, we don't have any formal severe risk around here, so that's good. You have to get up all the way to, parts of Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina for that, and even a greater risk further north. Quite a bit of flash flooding toward Tennessee. Quite a few flash flood warnings up there, by the way. But, it doesn't take a formal severe risk to get some severe thunderstorm warnings sometimes around here, and that's what we're dealing with as we're looking at the overall information. So, I know as I kind of look at some things, I'm going to pull up our hydrology. We're going to pull up day one, and we had that one flash flood warning around here. There's quite a few in Tennessee at a marginal type of risk, but so we'll have to be careful. Make sure we don't get another flash flood warning or two around here with some of this slow storm movement. Again, look at all this lightning here. 13th Street, 12th Street, 11th Street. Another warning back down here. Again, both warnings are set to expire in 9 minutes. Hopefully they will, but we'll watch the trends, obviously. Again, just appreciate everybody tuning in, trusting me. Heavy rain near Avalon Avenue, Lantana Avenue, 3rd Street, 5th Street there. Definitely watching the overall scenario carefully. Just going between the both. I'm going to see if there's any more updates from the Weather Service. See if we have anything new. Don't see anything yet, but just appreciate everybody tuning on in. We have a couple severe thunderstorm warnings here on play. As we look at the overall picture, just trying to be here for you. Looking at our different scans. Let me see what else I can kind of come up with here. I'm just looking, you see some hail potential here and there in some of these purple type areas. See Silver Spring Shores. We're on Silver Springs where those glass bottom boats are. They're technically in that warning right there, toward that spot, toward that area. Having some lightning getting closer, so gotta be careful there. Again, just trying to be here for you. Remember, whenever thunder roars, you want to go indoors here. Lightning can strike miles away from apparent storm. Not cool to the east, but you see on the periphery, Palm Coast, Ocala, a little bit warmer, and that's been enough to allow for some storm activity to become severe here. With the different interactions going on, enough instability, quite a bit of instability in some of those periphery, peripheral zones. I'm gonna go ahead here and look at power outages again. See that number toward Flagler, a little over 1,000 in the dark. It looked like when I was looking a little while ago. Between, these two storms and the rest of the area, we don't have any other storms that are close to severe right now even. Don't have any advisories, but we have these warnings down south, in our southern, zones. The southernmost county here toward this part of north central Florida, our southernmost northeast Florida county. We have, these severe thunderstorm warnings. They're on dark. It's all clear pretty much right now as we look here in North Bradford County. Some of our different spots here on the map, but again, that's something that's good to see, obviously, but you just have to be very mindful here of things toward the southern periphery. Because our coverage area, I'll go ahead and draw it like this. This is where the Weather Service Jacksonville area ends as well. It's a broad line, something like this toward the south is a different, different Weather Service area. And that's outside of my coverage area. It's at Melbourne office as you get south of some of this line, most of this line. Kind of have to go back up here, and then I know I skipped a little area in there, but you get the idea. I fill that back in. I mean, down in here, that's Lake County, that's Melbourne office. This is actually Sumter, and that's Tampa Weather Service, but still Orlando TV. These are Orlando TV. Technically, Marion and Flagler kind of are too, but Marion, gets Gainesville TV here at points, and, one of the stations over there I know, and in terms of that in the TV market. And then Jacksonville, the TV stations get down toward Flagler County. At least a couple of those do cover down in toward Flagler. So a couple of the news operations there. As we go ahead and look, I'm just trying to update you. For the 4 minutes there toward parts of Marion. Same for parts of Flagler. Let's check the lightning trend in here. Just bear with me. I'm going to check that, here in just a second as I loop that around. Watch that number. It went up, and then now it's going down. Over here toward Marion. You see it has kind of inched up a little bit recently, but I know it had been on a downtrend lately, seeing a little bit more, maybe that little southern spot here. As we look toward the Pedro community there, southeast 25th Avenue. Let me see if we have updates on these from the Weather Service and Jax. Okay, the warning for East Central Flagler will expire at 4:30. That storm over here. Let me take the lightning off for a moment. We'll take the sweep off too, but that warning, the storm which prompted it, has weakened below severe limits and no longer poses an immediate threat to life or property. Therefore, the warning will be allowed to expire as we're looking toward 4:30. However, gusty winds and heavy rain are still possible with the thunderstorm, and then we're talking about parts of Marion County. The storm which prompted a warning, has weakened below severe limits and no longer poses an immediate threat to life or property. Therefore, the warning will be allowed to expire. However, gusty winds and heavy rain are still possible with the thunderstorm. So, both of those warnings going away here as we get toward that bottom of the hour, it would seem right now. We'll go ahead and go back on over to our lightning information. You can see there is quite a bit of lightning. Let's just look here at a little bit of wind enhancement right here now. Between Montague and Silver Spring Shores. Let's just kind of look at that here, that last scan, maybe. I mean, it's not overwhelming, but a little bit of something there to kind of watch. Looking so high up on the radar. See a little more lightning down toward that southwestern part of the polygon. As we get here toward Flagler County. I know I'm just checking some of our different views, but it's going to be pretty far away on the radar. But a lot of the worst of that getting more toward the coastal waters. There's still some heavy rain at Beverly Beach, Painter's Hill, Flagler Beach. You kind of get the idea. Let me go ahead and go to our currents mode. Let me see something here. Road temps real quick. I know they're cooler to the east and some of these areas where the warnings, it's not really doing it justice here. But, I mean, when we have warnings in place, some of these spots are already cooling down some. But look how hot the road is toward Tallahassee, that pavement. Very hot there. If you're walking there without shoes on, it's not probably advisable. Same for your pets there. They got to protect their feet in this type of heat. Playground's hot too, towards some of the different spots. So power outages, so Flagler County, 1,500 there in the dark. You see a couple other counties with some outages here. Camden, 100. Lafayette, 100. South of area of Volusia, 3,000. Again, just trying to update you. We've had multiple severe thunderstorm warnings. I think we had up to, I want to say we've had 4, but let me make sure I may be, miscounting that here. Okay, 3 severe thunderstorm warnings and a flash flood warning for 4 total warnings. That's what we've had. As we're looking at the overall situation. But those 2 went away here as at the bottom of the hour. Still got some pretty strong weather though. I said earlier I wouldn't keep the radar running, because I didn't think there was enough to do that. And we, ended up in our southern periphery here. There's a situation. I just stayed on to make sure, and then sure enough, we ended up getting some warnings. But what I think we're going to do now, we're just going to go ahead and leave the radar running, just in case we get more warnings here, so I don't have to just break back in. So we'll leave it running here for a little while longer. I'm not sure how long, but because really we had probably more lightning earlier in the afternoon, but it wasn't enough for severe criteria. Then we had, just enough for severe in some of our peripheral areas here as we've been covering that. And, after we had that flash flood warning go away, we had some stuff on the periphery. I mean, Marion, Flagler, St. John's. I mean, as we're looking at things, the one in the St. John's, not as much exactly right at the periphery, but Flagler and Marion definitely are in terms of that overall storyline. But yeah, the story now is we don't have any of those formal warnings anymore, which is great news, obviously. Not seeing damage reports over on this source, but we've had a few power outages, so it's definitely possible we've had some of those damage reports. So I'm just going to leave the radar running here, just in case, because again, we had, stuff kind of develop on the periphery here with marginal severe conditions, so we don't want to have another warning pop up. We were able to jump right, into that. I mean, we were literally talking when the warnings were popping up, the severe thunderstorm warnings. That was really helpful to be able to talk about those as they evolve. But now with those gone, not as concerned, but things could still evolve. That stuff in Marion looks a little interesting as it's kind of drifting west though around the I-75 corridor. So you gotta be careful with that, even if it's not severe in nature. But yeah, I'll break back in if I need to here. Again, no marginal risk today for severe. But we've had some warnings, that we ended up having some strengthening take place there, some different interactions, and with the overall pattern. And that's why we had to, stick with you here for quite a bit longer after that flash flood warning went away. But now we don't have the severe or the flash flood warnings, so that's good. But if I need to pop back in, I will. We'll leave this running at least for a little bit. And again, I'll be back on if it is necessary to keep you guys up to date. Let me put our arrows on. I know sometimes they're not going to read the situation quite right, but they can help sometimes with the flow pattern. So we're just going to leave this running. I'm going to check questions, comments one more time. Just appreciate everybody tuning in. Eventually, if this, kind of dwindles on down here, we'll cut the stream. But I think we'll just leave it running for now. I know with the overall situation here, we'll leave it running for the time being. Quite a bit of rain towards southern Marion, so have to watch that. Potential of those, maybe flooded advisory type scenarios coming into play there. Got to watch out as the weather clears in some of those spots. Just watch out for those rip currents after that lightning threat subsides there. I don't have it on the map because it was kind of making things hard to see there towards some of that, wind enhancement toward the coast there. But we do have that rip current risk remaining in play as well off toward the east. So you got to be cognizant of that. In fact, let me put that back on just because I don't want people to kind of, have a false sense of security in terms of that. So I'm going to jump back over to the computer real fast here. I better add that back in just so we have that on the board here. Sometimes I have to do this for our heat advisories so they don't take up the board here too much. This is less of the board than those, but if I need to pop back in, I will. Very well could for some Marion stuff. It's right on the edge of the radar, so they may have to issue another warning just because it's kind of hard to tell exactly what's going on down there. I mean, there is a site at the Ocala Airport that could give them a reading, and then if we get some type of higher wind there, then the same deal would apply. They have to issue a warning, if we got a reading that was, verifying a little bit higher. But again, appreciate your viewership. Appreciate everybody tuning in. I'll be back here as warranted. Stay safe. You see that rip current risk in that lighter blue toward the coast there under the rain. Toward a lot of areas. South of our area, you see it a little bit easier, but that's something we got to be aware of as we're looking higher risk of rip currents there. Not, safe there to be in the water for a lot of folks there in terms of that overall impact, in terms of that concern. It is safer to be on the sand really than, in the water if you're, really wanting to display it the safest way there. I mean, granted, even, we have lightning, it's not safe to be either place, but again, when we have the ideal beach conditions in terms of not having lightning, you have to still watch out for the rip currents there. And, got to be really careful, just play it safe if you can with that rip current risk. It's the best, course of action there, the path of least regret is to not get in the water if you don't feel comfortable. So, again, that's the overall storyline for now. Appreciate your viewership. I'll be back here if warranted, but otherwise, enjoy that Saturday. I'll leave this running for a little longer. And, of course, even when this is off, when the stream's over, you have the interactive radar available all the time. cloudweather.com/radar. You have the Cloud Weather app there. You can download that there in Google Play Store. Listed as Clouds Weather, Cloud_S Weather. The Apple App Store listed as KC Cloud Weather. You get lightning alerts, severe alerts, and interactive radar available. Your forecast available all in that app there, that mobile application. Download it today. It's free. You can even send storm damage photos into me and things along those lines. So, the storm photos, if it's safe to do so. So that's going to wrap it for now. Keep it tuned to Cloud Weather. I'll keep you up to date here as warranted, even get more details over on some of my Facebook pages, like facebook.com/cloudsweather. Automated alerts. You get flooded blazery details now over there too. So see some excessive rainfall, some of these spots, just be mindful of that. You can get some more details on those polygons over there. I know we've seen all that rain here recently, like toward Cedar Key. Still have some drought concerns, but some spots doing better with the rain. Just don't want to get too much too quick here. So we had that one flash flood warning report to Putnam earlier, but that went away. And that was, great news. It went away pretty quick, but that's what we first jumped in for, and we had 3 severe thunderstorm warnings after that. But they're off the board now, so that's good. But we'll be watching, be back if necessary. Stay tuned, stay safe, stay informed. Stick with Cloud Weather for the latest.